Today we're going to be talking about some reports you can make in Oncue. There's two types, designation lists and highlighted transcripts. We're going to talk about how you can make them and what's the difference. So in the last trial, one of the important things that I had to do was to make sure that I had the designations, the videos ready for the witnesses that we had to present by way of video. Now, in a lot of federal trials, the way that the designations work is that one side is going to prepare them for both the direct and cross-examinations. One side will present the designations, their affirmative designations. The other side will then have their objections and or counter designations to that. Then they might also have their affirmative designations, and then we might have some objections and counters to that as well. And then we have to agree on which ones are finally going to get played, and usually how many get played is dependent on whether or not there's a chess clock on the trial. But ultimately, at the end of the day, most pretrial orders require that one side makes all the designations for both sides, the affirmatives, the counters, the other side's affirmatives, and then their counters to that. And then you also play them in numerical order depending on how they came up originally in the transcript. So I've already made a video about designation lists and how to incorporate them, so I'm not going to go over a full review. I'll just do a quick kind of run through of what I did, very high level. If you want to see the full video, check out the link that'll pop up at the top, or I'll place a link to it in the description down below. Once we go over that, then we'll go over how to make reports, which are going to make your life a lot easier, especially when you're talking to that associate who's in charge of designations, because that associate is going to be asking you, how long are our designations and how long are their designations? So that's a question you're constantly going to be needing to answer in a very quick way. So that way you can figure out those run times. And also you're going to be able to want to give something to the court reporter at the end, so that way the court reporter doesn't have to transcribe everything as the video is being played in court. That's going to make the court reporter's life easier, which will in turn make your life a lot easier. So let's first do a quick review of the steps, and then we'll get into how to make the reports. And so here what you could see is I had the help menu open, and I needed to be able to then go, because I can never remember exactly what are the headers that you need in the load file. And to make a designation list load file, the first things you need to do is open up a text editor, put in ID equals, and then whatever you want to name these designations. And then underneath that, you have to then put in brackets, the transcript equals, and then the exact name of the transcript. And the way you find that is you go to the transcript section in Oncue, and then just copy paste whatever it's being called within Oncue, and then paste that in there. And then the third thing that you have to do is which highlighter label you want to have on it. And the one that I chose for ours was number 1, which is for our designations. And then what I did from there is I took the kind of the Word document chart that had been made by the associates, and I copied all of our designations under headline 1. And then after that, I hit a return and then did a bracket highlighter 2, which is their counters. And then in the next column on the Word document, I was able to copy and paste all the counter designations that the plaintiffs, which was the other side in this case, were counter designated. Once I had at least all of the highlighter 1 and highlighter 2 designations into my text file, I was then able to import all those designations and have Oncue make all those designations for me, and then it gave them numerical orders based on where they were in that text file. But remember, the judge's pretrial order required that at the end of the day, all the clips had to be played in numerical order based on where they came in the transcript. So the way that I got around that problem was then, once I had all the designations into Oncue and made as video clips, I can then just drag and drop the clips that I wanted into the correct order. So I would just take them kind of like from the bottom and move them to the top, take some from the bottom and move them to the top, and kind of slot the counter designations in wherever they needed to go. And so that part was relatively simple, and it didn't take too much time. And then I could also quickly look at the end of it to make sure I had them all done in the right order. Then after that point, I had to trim my designation clips just to make sure that the clips started at the beginning of the question and ended at the end of a question, and that there weren't any gaps or objections that needed to be removed. And so there's your QC, which is the most time-consuming part, no matter what trial presentation software you're using in terms of making video designation clips. But then once that's done, then I was ready to start making the reports. And let me switch over to another video that I made, and we'll take a look at it. So now in this video, what you can see is I have all the designations in the correct numerical order, and then you can right-click, and then you're going to select reports. And the first thing that I selected or printed out was transcript, and this is going to give you a full transcript, all the pages of the transcript, but you could select highlighting, so that way if someone wants to see the whole, whether it's 100 or 300 pages of the deposition with our designations highlighted in one color and their counters in another, this is the way to do that when you report a transcript. So if we take a look at that, you could see on the cover page, it gives you the name of the deponent, it gives you the runtime of our designations, it gives you the runtime of their designations, and then as you're going through and looking at the transcript, when you come across pages that have been designated, they're going to be highlighted one color or another. And then there's a large number of highlighter colors. I think it goes up to like 7 or 8, depending on whether it's like a SIR rebuttal or however complicated your case may get. Fortunately, I've only had to go use like highlighters number 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the most complicated. The other thing that you can do is you can then go, and I think this is the much more useful way of presenting the information. You go back to the designations section and you right click again and you go to reports. This time, instead of picking transcripts, we're going to pick designation lists. We're going to choose where to put it, and then I usually like to check all the boxes here, so that way it includes a legend for the colors and it provides highlighter coloring. And then when you get it, you get the same cover page that tells you how long our designations are versus theirs. And now you still get the color coding, but instead of all the text of the transcript, you only get what has affirmatively been disclosed or designated. And so it's a much more condensed piece. It's an actual word for word kind of transcription of what the video will ultimately play. And what's nice about both this and the transcript, full transcript report, is that at the end, any documents or exhibits that you have choreographed to appear during the designation testimony, that will show up in a list at the end too. So that way, if you need to move any of those into evidence after the end of the video, you already have a quick list without having to kind of comb through and read and make sure whatever exhibits have or haven't been actually displayed. You have that list already made for you. So the reports are super helpful in Oncue. It makes a lot of people's lives a lot easier. It makes my life a lot easier because that's the question I get asked for several days about the designations, especially when time is of the essence in terms of how much time does a witness take, because people want to know how little can we designate and get away with not designating it, but still get in all the documents we need to move into evidence and get all the testimony in. I can give them very quick reports in terms of if you cut or remove or add certain designations, what's that going to do to the final runtimes. So super helpful for me, really easy to generate. I mean, once you've done all the editing of the clips, then these reports are just a matter of clicking a couple buttons so you can get those answers that everyone is looking for. So if you have any questions about this process, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.